Marcus a good second. Then came Happy Does and Big Bet. Last one will be Holly Go Quigley. In the gate. And they're off. Bougie Like and Happy as a Clam. Big Leap along the inside is up close in third. Double Cappuccino comes away between rivals and is now going right after the front runner, Bougie Like. Then Gioro in fifth, followed by Catholic Cat, who races just outside of Nakota, and it's another two. Back to Holly Go Quickly, who is 9 lengths off the lead. Bougie Like and Antonio Fresu lead the way, confronted early on by Double Cappuccino into second. Then comes Big Leap, tucked in neatly third in a good spot too. Then comes Happy as a Clam, 4 off the pace in fourth. Gioro is next. Catholic Cat is some 6 or 7 lengths off them, followed by Nakota and Holly Go Quickly. Past the half-mile pole. Bougie Like's been there throughout. Double Cappuccino a half length away in second, and Big Leap rides the rail in third. Then Happy as a Clam, still fourth, 3 lengths off the lead. Gioro is next on the inside of Catholic Cat, who gets a little bit of a nudge. Holly Go Quickly in Nakota. Approaching the quarter pole, and Double Cappuccino is up to take a narrow lead. Bougie Like is now pushed along down at the rail in second. The come from behinders are starting to arrive on the scene. Here comes Gioro on the outside. Further out is Catholic Cat, and also Happy as a Clam. On the outside, Gioro, Happy as a Clam. These two go on down at the rail. Double Cappuccino is fighting very bravely. It's Happy as a Clam in between horses with a narrow advantage near the wire. Happy as a Clam wins it. Double Cappuccino was second. Gioro finished third, and in behind them, it was Nakota who was in fourth. That's 2 for Serafine Carmona. And they're off. Assembled Storm and Daddy Indeed are both out alertly. Woodbine Way is coming through along the inside to take second. O'Neill's Legacy is rushing through now right into the pace. And racing in fourth now is Daddy Indeed with 2.5 to make up. Then Amanda Rose, I'm a Risque Girl, Tessa outside that pair. It's a gap of 4 to spread the risk, and Roses Are Blue, and another 3 back to Roman Empress. Into the far turn, O'Neill's Legacy, Woodbine Way, and Assembled Storm vying for command. Just in behind them, Tessa will go 4 deep, but right there in the thick of it with a nice bid. And I'm a Risque Girl in the green silks is trying to move up between rivals as O'Neill's Legacy is the first to bow out. Quarter of a mile to go, Woodbine Way, I'm a Risque Girl, Tessa on the outside in the red. They're at the top of the stretch, and Woodbine Way hugs the rail and goes on, trying to fend off Tessa, who's 2 lengths back in second. Then I'm a Risque Girl and Roses Are Blue. They're coming to the 16th pole. Woodbine length and a half. Tessa's in second. Here's Roses Are Blue with a late run, but it's a little too late. Woodbine Way, that's 3 for Serafine Carmona. Tessa's second best. Roses Are Blue, and I'm a Risque Girl. Outside. And they're off. Prime and Ready is out alertly. Ovita's Hobby matches strides in the opening stages, and Shillfleet is not far behind, a close-up third as they run down the hill. Anchor Dub moves up outside of that rival, 4 lengths clear of Magale, and Hey Lil Lady at the back of the field. So it will be Ovita's Hobby opening up now to lead it by 2.5 lengths. Prime and Ready in second. She'll Fleed the Gray down on the inside, comfortable in third. Then Anchor Dub fourth, 4 lengths off the lead. Another 2 back to Magale, who's second to last still, joined by Hey Lil Lady. Moving around the bend and toward the quarter pole, Ovita's Hobby cruising along 3/4 of a length. Prime and Ready trying to re-engage in second. Shield Fleet has some run just behind the top pair, waiting for a spot to run to. And on the outside of rivals comes Anchor Dub in fourth. Hey Lil Lady is next. They're at the top of the stretch. Ovita's Hobby, Prime and Ready. Shield Fleet coming after them now. Shield Fleet in the center of the course has good momentum, trying to get to Prime and Ready. Prime and Ready, Shield Fleet. She'll Fleet, and Juan Hernandez just coasting home to win it by a half length. Prime and Ready second, Ovita's Hobby third, then Hey Lil Lady. And they're off. Train the Trainer is very quick, as is Pacific Quest. Those two match strides through the early stages. Here's Sierra Silver coming through quickly along the inside to take third. Then it's Varney fourth, about 5 lengths off the leaders. Down at the rail, Concord Bridge, Day and Age is second to last, and the favorite Goal Oriented is last. He's starting to pick it up a bit now, and he's guided to the outside. They move into the far turn. It's Sierra Silver in front, a half length, pressed by Train the Trainer in second. Concord Bridge right there in third. Then comes Varney moving up on the outside to take that third spot, and Goal Oriented is underway fifth, has 5 to make up. Big gap to Pacific Quest and Day and Age. Train the Trainer with 1/4 of a mile to go is just in front. Sierra Silver trying to fight back second. Varney, and here's Goal Oriented, and Goal Oriented just kicked it in to another gear. Goal Oriented will cruise on by the top pair. A good looking performance from Goal Oriented. Goal Oriented strides out to score by 3.5, and he wants to keep on going. Train the Trainer second, Sierra Silver third, Varney fourth. Freysu, scratch 4 triple diamonds, 23 minutes to post. Alley Cat coming up. Supersonic Blue and Muscled the last 2. They're off in the John Shear. And Supersonic Blue is sent out for the early lead. Toughness has good early foot in second. They are followed by Muscled, who's at the back of the field. Cali Cat is currently racing in third. Artislas is well held at the back, right next to Encanto. Out of the dip and down the hill, and it is Supersonic Blue in front by 2.5 lengths. Toughness in second, followed by Cali Cat, who races in third, 4 lengths off the lead. Artislas is inching a little bit closer. He is right on the inside of Muscled, and it's another 3 back to Encanto, who's starting to get going from behind. Just 6 lengths front to back. They have 1/4 of a mile to go. Supersonic Blue, Cali Cat makes a very wide bid. Muscled even wider. Artislas is coming with the orange cap. They're coming toward the 8th pole, and Supersonic Blue has a short lead. Cali Cat in the center. Artislas bearing down on them, and on the outside of them comes Muscled. Driving finish. Supersonic Blue clings to the lead. Supersonic Blue. Artislas on the outside. Supersonic Blue all the way in the John Shear. Tight photo for second between Cali Cat and Artislas. James J. Braddock is acting up. Settles down a bit, getting straightened up in there. And they're off. Very slow beginning for Charlie Pride. It was an awkward one, too. A quick start for Got Your Six, who's going straight to the front. The favorite, Let Me In, is flashing good early interest. And down at the rail here, Spectacular Tiger. And Spectacular Tiger moves to battle for the lead. Excessive Thievery is in and among horses, followed by Willisaw. Riding by is in mid-pack on the inside of James J. Braddock. Between those two comes Artist Point. It's another 2.5 to Jenny's Tiz. And slow starting Charlie's Pride is at the back of the field. Got Your Six rounds the far turn in front, 3/4 of a length. Let Me In is very hard ridden, trying to get by this front runner. It is Got Your Six and Let Me In arriving at the top of the stretch together. And now Let Me In is up to take the lead. Got Your Six is back to second. A gap of 5 back to Artist Point, who's into third. Inside of him comes Willisaw. They're in the final furlong, and it's lights out. Let Me In is long gone. It's going to be a good battle for second. Artist Point, and on the outside, Jenny's Tiz. It will be a runaway win, however, for Let Me In. Jenny's Tiz is in a very tight photo for second with Artist Point. In the gate. And they're off. Atomic Drop dwelt. So I'm Told is sprinting very quickly in the early stages, and Kerrygold has good speed too, so there is no lack of early tempo. Yakov settles behind these leaders, as does Hurricane Cloud in fourth. Then Pass the Baton and Busy Channel right next to one another. American Empire is fourth last. Outside Liberal, McKinnon is well spotted after this fast opening quarter mile, and Atomic Drop is at the back of the field. They move on to the backstretch, and it is So I'm Told loose, and So I'm Told has a 5-length lead. Kerrygold is comfortably tracking in second, another 3 to Yakov in third, and then it's Hurricane Cloud in fourth. The two grays Pass the Baton and Busy Channel remain right together with less than a half-mile to travel. Another 3 to an unhurried McKinnon. Racing on the outside of American Empire, Atomic Drop still second to last, and Liberal at the back. Around the far turn, So I'm Told still there, 4-length lead. Kerrygold is in second. Now Yakov is asked to get after these leaders in third. Outside of him comes Hurricane Cloud in fourth. It's 2 more lengths to McKinnon, who's starting to rally on the outside. They're at the top of the stretch. And now here's Yakov on the outside. And in between horses, Kerrygold. These two take over. And Hurricane Cloud is getting into the mix too. Yakov, Kerrygold. Yakov's in front. And Yakov, Hector Berrios rode him like he was King Kong. Kerrygold was second. Hurricane Cloud finished third, and Busy Channel fourth. Loaded quickly. And they're off. Extensive is asked for some early speed down at the rail. Gavea is up close. And now here comes Western Avenue, along with Hard to Figure, 1 from the rail, and Trench on the outside. Extensive, who broke near the leaders, now settles in fifth. He's right on the inside of Brazenly. Then Canada Gate on the outside of Mongolian Max, and the trailer is Ghazali. It's Gavea showing the way to the 6 furlong pole. He's pressed by Trench. Those two stride for stride, with the big chestnut Hard to Figure, 2 off the pace in third. Then comes Western Avenue in the 4th spot, 5 lengths off the lead. Extensive and Brazenly are right next to one another, 4 clear of Canada Gate. Ghazali is next, and at the back is Mongolian Max. They're heading to the half-mile pole, and it's Tranch, the new leader, opening up 3/4 of a length. Kyle Frey sends Extensive through along the inside for a middle move, and here comes Extensive to engage Tranch. Tranch in front, Extensive along the inside, now second and doing it nicely. Behind them, Hard to Figure is in third. Canada Gate has made it up to a joint fourth. Outside of him comes Brazenly, another 2 lengths behind them to Mongolian Max with a 1/4 of a mile to go. Extensive is the one to beat. Tranch going with him. At the rail, Canada Gate. Between rivals, Hard to Figure. They're at the top of the stretch. Extensive hugs the rail and goes on strongly. And it's Extensive suddenly clear by 4. Brazenly is pitting in a big run into second. It's Extensive by 3. Brazenly trying to close the gap. Extensive is well on his way to win, though. And Extensive scores by 3.5. Brazenly was second. Mongolian Max third in front of Canada Gate. And they're off. Kentaro Doro is going to the front over the ocean, has good speed too, and just behind them, Kawazaki comes away in third. The favorite Hurricane Way is in a good spot at the rail fourth, and Big Juanito fifth. On the outside and ready to rumble, Bronco Nagurski goes a bit wide into the first turn. Naismith is next. The 2 trailers are 6 Magpies, who's 3 in front of Smooth Salute. Around the first turn, and it's Kentaro Doro dictating terms. Has it 2.5 over the ocean, is tracking while under a snug hold second. Another 3 to a comfortable Hurricane Way in third, and then comes Kawasaki fourth. And Ready to Rumble and Big Juanito are next to one another, 4 lengths clear of Naismith. It's another 2, back to 6 Magpies with a half-mile left to travel. Then comes Smooth Salute as they string out, and Bronco Nagurski is the distant trailer. Around the far turn, Kentaro Doro over the ocean puts the pressure on now in second. They're followed by Kawasaki in third. Big Juanito is moving up. Hurricane Way has got to do better. In fact, he's dropping right out of it. Hurricane Way didn't fire this afternoon. Big Juanito did. He's swinging into action as Over the Ocean takes the lead at the 8th pole, chased intently by Kawasaki. Out in the center of the course, Naismith and Big Juanito coming to the 16th pole, and Kawasaki is right to Over the Ocean. They're nose to nose. Over the Ocean or Kawasaki. Kawasaki surges past and beats him. Over the Ocean was second. Third went to Naismith in front of Big Juanito, and then Smooth Salute.
Welcome to opening day of the Hollywood Spring Meet here at St. Anita. My name is Tom Quigley, and seated alongside me, the agent for the leading jockey during the recently concluded winter meet. That, of course, would be Juan Hernandez. My seminar guest name, Craig O'Brien. Craig, good Friday. Welcome to the seminar.
Thank you, Tom.
Great,
being here.
It's great to have you here. Now, congratulations, of course, with having Juan being the leading rider at the meet. We'll talk about that in a minute. But before we do, I kind of want to take a walk back in time and ask you a question. Your dad was a very prolific jockey agent as well. What are your first memories of him and you either being at the racetrack or maybe him bringing some jockeys to the house?
Wow, that's a good question, Tom.
That's what I'm paid for.
My earliest memories might be around 1961 or 62 when Manuel Yakov, New York's premier rider, would come to the house and he'd bring his new wife, Linda, and Linda just also happened to be Miss Universe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Being a young man, that kind of caught your attention.
And she loved playing bumper pool with me.
You didn't care about Manny. You cared about Linda.
She loved playing bumper pool with me and my friends. Then after a while, they'd say, "Hey, is Manuel coming over?" I said, "He's coming over, but you guys aren't. You guys aren't."
Now, your dad represented Manny, of course, but he also represented many other well-known jockeys. Who were some of those jocks?
He's had 6 Hall of Famers, I believe.
Wow.
Tom, John Adams, Ralph Neves, Yakov, Pinkay, Pierce, and I believe Sandy Hawley for a short time.
He did pretty good during his career.
He had a pretty good career.
Now, did you know that you were going to be a jockey agent at a young age, or did you try and maybe drift off into another area and then decide, you know what, the racetrack is where I want to be?
I tried to play baseball at Pasadena City College and then Cal State Fullerton, but when I found myself going out to center field with my windbreaker on so I could listen to the race results, I said, I don't think my heart's in it.
So you became a jockey agent.
Yeah.
And of course, now you currently have one. But who were some of the other jockeys you represented through the years, Craig?
My first jockey was Manny Ortiz from Arizona. And then he went back. I had him at Pomona and then Oak Tree. And Manny's last day, he rode the last race for Ron Keith, who was also a janitor. And he beat Shoemaker in a claiming race.
What were the odds, if you remember?
He was
it
about
1,000,000 to 1?
No, he's about 8-1, but Manny was so excited. He left that night for Turf Paradise and called me. He said, "Craig, you got to do me a big favor. Give me 8 photos." By the time I bought the photos, I think I lost money on the deal. And then I had Steve Valdez after he lost the buck. The first rider, Tom, that I really did okay with was Paco Mena, especially at Pomona.
Of course.
And then Eddie Call.
How long did you have Eddie?
I had him from 79 to 89.
A decade.
2 Kentucky Derbies, a Breeders' Cup with Princess Rooney.
A just miss in the Arlington Million.
Oof.
The Bart versus John Henry.
And
talk about photos. I want to see 8 photos of those.
You know, Tom, we were all watching it at Eric Roth's house.
Beach House in Del Mar.
Eric Roth is just getting started then, and then he became the screenwriter for a little show called Forrest Gump.
He's done other things as well.
Yeah, he did well. And we were all jumping down because Dick Enberg said, "Oh, my." They zoomed in on the Bart. "Oh, my, a long shot from California wins the Arlington Million."
Sure, you guys
Dick
are going
Enberg.
crazy. Cartwheels,
and then
high fives.
They showed it in slow motion, and Scotty McClellan,
another agent.
And he goes, "Ooh, that got close." I go, "Well, yeah, but Dick Enberg said we won." And they came back, I swear, Tom.
They went to commercial,
and Dick Enberg goes, "Oh, my," that was his big calling card. "We made a mistake. John Henry won." Oh, you made a mistake. And sure enough, I went out to the track that afternoon. I had 2 or 3 people congratulate me because they heard it.
They turned it off after Dick Enberg said the first "Oh, my."
And you know who took it the best?
Eddie.
He said, I pulled up and I looked at you. I said, "You got me, didn't I?" He said, "No." And Eddie said, "Trust me, you got me the last jump."
Do you talk to Eddie much at all? He's down in Louisiana.
Not too much. No,
occasionally I see him when he comes out here.
Yeah, he looks great. Every now and then when he comes out for the Eddie D Stakes, we'll go through old times at Clocker's Corner.
Now, Juan Hernandez, of course, is your meal ticket right now.
Yeah.
Briefly, Craig, just describe what type of human being is and what makes him such a good jockey.
Whew. He's got the same demeanor as Eddie. Nothing rattles him. He's very calm, cool, collected.
Day in and day out, the consistency, right?
Yeah, because we started in 2020, and by 2021, he had won a race, a maiden race on Forbidden Kingdom for Mandela, and Pratt was on one Baffert. Joel Rosario was on the other maiden for Baffert, and the three of them came down there. There was an inquiry, and Juan won by a nose. And about a week later, Bob said, "What would it take for me to get in the Juan Hernandez business?" I said, "Not much." He said, "We'll go by and see Jimmy." And I talked to Bob with it since. And he said, besides being calm and cool, he's an excellent gate boy, and he's really a strong finisher. And Bob will bring it up every now and then, how the whipping rule hasn't really affected Juan because he's strong enough without the whip, much like Eddie was in Lafitte.
Juan Hernandez might be cool, calm, and collected, but his jockey agent, Craig O'Brien, who's our seminar guest today, is also of the same demeanor. We're going to find out who Craig likes. Juan obviously has a number of mounts on today's card. But before we do any of that, let's toss the microphone over to track announcer Frank Miramani and get the early changes on the Good Friday card here at the Great Race Place.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Santa Anita Park, the Great Race Place. Here are the early changes. In race 1, number 1, Cernano will carry 2 pounds over. The first race is the start of the early pick 5. Race 2 starts the early pick 4. Blink or no. In the third, scratch number 5, My Favorite Daughter. Turning to race 4, start of the $2 pick 6. No changes. In the fifth, late pick 5 and all turf pick 3 begins. Scratch 1 Petite Treat. Scratch 2 Musical Number. Note that number 9, Hera's Hope, will draw in and run. Race 6, first leg of the late pick 4. No changes. In the seventh, scratch number 2, Kissed by Fire. Late pick 3 starts with the 7th. 8th begins the late double, scratch 11, Atomic Drop. And in the 9th, scratch 8, Warren's Hot Rod. Scratch 10, Bonneville Gem. Scratch 11, Roxy's Bad Boy. And scratch number 12, Big Notion. 8, 10, 11, and 12 out of race number 9. Enjoy your day at the Great Race Place. We are 57 minutes away from the opener, which is at 1 p.m. Coast to Coast Pick 5 returns every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Offering races from Gulfstream Park and Santa Anita Park. Let's go back to Quigley's Corner. His special guest today is jockey agent Craig O'Brien.
Welcome back. We're talking horses with Craig O'Brien. He's the agent for jockey Juan Hernandez, who, of course, was the leading rider at the recently concluded winter meet. It's our pleasure to have him today. Craig, we'll go through today's 9-race card, but a question for you. I mentioned in the opening that today's the opening day of the Hollywood meet here at St. Eden. Now, of course, we all have great memories of Hollywood Park. I know you do as well. You were back there during the days of Charlie Whittingham, Bobby Frankel, Scotty McClellan, the agent for Chris McCarron, John DeSantis, the agent for Sandy Ollie. You guys would all kind of congregate in Frankel's box right there on the finish line and have loads of fun. That was before cell phones, ADWs, computer wagering. Those were quote unquote the good old days.
Yes, they were. They were great.
What do you remember about either Charlie or Bobby? Of course, Bobby, his persona was that he could be a little bit gruff, but when you peel back a layer, he was kind of a pussycat and a nice guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy. Yeah, he was a lot of fun too. We'd tell him stuff, Scotty, me, and Ron Anders, like, when you claim one for 16 and you run it back for 32 or 40, that's when you teeny boppers, you morons, you don't know what you're talking about.
But it was all in good fun.
It was all in good fun. And then, you go, Bobby, did you see that maiden win by 10? He ran too fast. You watch. He's not going to. And then he had one win by 10. And we go, what now? He said, this was a freak. It was Ghost Zapper.
Wow. Great memories, right?
Yeah, Bobby was great.
Let's look at the most recently concluded winter meet, Craig, because I pulled up some statistics for Juan. First of all, he had 231 mounts, easily the most in the jockey's room. That means you've done your job. You're getting him not only on a lot of mounts, but a lot of live mounts.
Yeah, my dad, who we referred to earlier, he told me when I started, he said, it's not how many you ride, it's how many you win. And Juan is really efficient. I mean, year in and year out, he'll ride between 23 and 25%.
Yeah, absolutely right. As a matter of fact,
like clockwork.
23% was his win percentage during the recently concluded meet. You had a total of 53 wins. The second place jockey was Flavian with 42. So you were clear by 9. Of course, Flavian wasn't here full time, but still very admirable. Another thing that caught my eye, Craig, is of those 53 wins, 33 were on the main track. 33 of the 53 were on the main track. When Juan gets on a main track horse, he wins at a 37% clip. And he's also equally adept on the turf course, winning with 20 mounts on the turf course as well. He's an all-around just agile, good, solid rider.
You're exactly right, Tom. He can do it all.
And he produces with favorites as well. Of those 53 winners, 33 were on favorites as well. So when he's on a favorite, he actually wins at a 52% win clip. He's a guy that you can kind of back, your $2 with. He's always going to give you his best effort.
He's amazing. In fact, for the 2-week sabbatical we just took, he came to me and he said, I'd like to go ride somewhere. So I
were at Keeneland.
Yeah, I said, well, we've been kind of lucky. We had won a stake when we went back, tried gaming in the Southwest.
Sunland Park, right?
No, gaming.
Oh, that's right.
Was
the getaway car.
Oakland.
Right.
Getaway car was that. But we'd won on the undercard for Maker. And then a couple of weeks prior, we went up to Turfway for Pete Urton. And again, we won on the undercard for Mike Maker. So I called Mike. I said, are you going to be running at Oakland or Keeneland? He said, I'm going to run a bunch at Keeneland. I said, can you put Juan on some? So I'll put Juan on all of them. And
you guys wound up winning.
The first day, Juan one-on-one that paid $95. Next day, he one-on-one for Pete Urton. So we ended there. We rode 9 and won 2. So
well, let's see if we can find some winners on today's card, Craig.
Okay.
You ride a bunch of horses, including in race number 1, the morning line favorite, which we'll get to in a minute. But first of all, as you well know, watching, race 1 begins the 50-cent early pick 5. And race 1 today, it might be a little bit overcast here in Arcadia, California, but will be fast and firm. No precipitation whatsoever. On the turf course, the rails today are at 30 feet. We're going 1 1/8 miles on the turf course for maiden claimers. $50,000 is the claiming tag. We've got a field of 8. As I mentioned, the original morning line favorite that Juan rides is number 4, Ghost Coast. However, the current betting choice is on the bottom, number 7, Rowan August for Richard Mandela. Let's first talk about Ghost Coast. You and Jeff Mullins obviously do very well when you team up. What can you tell us, Craig, about Ghost Coast? We haven't seen him in the afternoon since May of last year.
Well, I'd say with Jeff, Juan wins at about 36%. So that's a good sign. But you know what you might like, Tom, here, is he can't be claimed. He can run in this race, but he can't be claimed. So that's easier than running an allowance race, obviously. So I would think he'd be awfully tough.
Does Juan exercise many horses in the morning? I don't know what his morning routine is. How often does he come out and maybe work some horses?
He comes out any time I ask him. He'll work some for Bob. Not as many as he used to. I just get, he's riding. The people that are riding him are going to ride him. If he works a horse once and knows him, it's not one that he needs to work every time. Plus, there was a situation about a year ago. The siren went off, and I was working some horse that I really didn't need to. And another agent said, I think that's your jock. And I just thought, sometimes less is more. Back east, jocks don't work nearly as many. When I had Gary at Churchill Downs, nobody ever asked him to work any horses till right at the end when he had already told me he was going to retire. And it was Helen Pitts. She goes, I got a nice horse. If Gary likes him, I want him to ride him. And that was a horse called Einstein, the one that San Anita handicap. But, I mean, he will, but I don't really. Juan loves going to the gym every other day.
Not like you and me. Speaking of which, you just recently had hip surgery. That went really well, and you're glad that you did it.
Yeah, I did it last a year ago, December, and I love it. Should have done it sooner.
How old are you now, Craig?
75.
And you did retire before you had Juan's book, and you came back out of retirement. I'm sure you're glad that you did.
Yeah, my wife and I took some time. We traveled, went to Austin, Chicago, and then we just got in the car and started driving across the coast. And the first thing we saw, I'll never forget. It was the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. The Grand Canyon.
Of course. Breathtaking, isn't it?
It's breathtaking.
You can fly over it, which I've done many times before, but until you actually see it in person, it's a modern day marvel, right? I mean, it takes your breath away.
I hate to say it, but everything else, Zion National Park, Yellowstone, Mount Rushmore, all kind of paled in comparison.
And as a human being, it makes you feel about this small, right? It puts everything in perspective because the Grand Canyon, if you've never been, as Craig mentioned, certainly something you should do either individually or with your family. Let's turn the page, Craig. Take a look at race number 2. Race 2, of course, begins the popular 50-cent early pick 4. We're sprinting 6 furlongs on the main track for fillies and mares. It's a starter optional claiming race. We've got a field of 6. Number 2, Cypress Moon, fresh off a victory on the main track, I should say, on the turf course for George Papadromo, is the 8-5 morning line favorite. However, you ride number 4, Mayakama, now back in the Jeff Mullins barn. Jeff seemed to have the secret with this horse, now back in his barn. What do you know, if anything, about Mayakama?
Jeff just came to me when he got, he said, that filly you won on, it's back in my barn. I want you to ride her, and that was that. I think for her to win, she kind of needs a 2 and 3 to hook up.
Kind of stalk and maybe swoop around them at some point.
One of those two gets free from the other one. I don't know if we can run them down.
Fair enough. 2, 3, and 4 in no particular order for our seminar guest today, Craig O'Brien. Let's take a look at race number 3, Craig, once again for fillies and mares. This is 1 mile on the turf course, $25,000 claimers. Scratch your mount, scratch the 5, My Favorite Daughter. However, the other Vladimir Serin runner, number 4, Zayaret, does compete. The morning line favorite, Big Mama Sue for Steve Miotti. Steve Miotti barn is on a bit of a roll right now. Give us your thoughts on race 3, Craig.
Yeah, Steve's a very good trainer. I would say he's got the winner, Big Mama Sue. I think the one we rode last time, Tear Garden, will run a little better because Juan had urged George to take the blinkers off, and he's doing it. But I had already given Vladimir a call. But I would say that's probably how they'll run 2, 3.
You make a very good point, Craig, because I've heard this a lot about Flavian as well. When Flavian gets off a horse, he'll tell a trainer his opinion. This horse should be gelded. You should put the blinkers on. You should run him long, whatever the case might be. And that's really the true sign of a real horseman, right? It's not just being a jockey. Not all jockeys have that attribute. They get off the mountain and they say, okay, let's just go on to the next one. But these high-class, high-echelon jockeys really kind of try and understand maybe what's going to make a horse tick for future efforts down the road.
You're absolutely right. And Juan is in that level, in that category. And I've had trainers say, come back a day or 2 later and thank me. Say, yeah, we're going to do what Juan said. He's absolutely right.
Big Mama Sue, here's a statistic courtesy of Brad Free at the Daily Racing Forum, who does such a great job. According to Brad and DRF Formulator, the Steve Miotti barn has won with their last 7 turf route favorites. Of course, if Big Mama Sue goes favorite in race 3, she'll fit that category, and he's been undefeated the last 7 times he's saddled a favorite going 2 turns on the turf course. Race number 4 begins the $2 pick 6 furlongs on the main track. 3-year-olds in for a $32,000 tag. We've got a field of 7. Number 1, Toughness from the Bob Baffert barn taking a drop down in class is the even money favorite. Before we get your thoughts on the race, Craig, because you're right, Toughness, let's watch a workout for Toughness. This workout would have been the most recent one. It was a blowout back on April 14th. And there's a lot of things that I took away from watching this workout, courtesy of our friends at firsttv.com. Obviously, he still is in good shape because you can see he means business during this particular workout. But also, maybe more importantly, he doesn't have the blinkers on this particular morning, which was back on April 14th, just 4 days ago. He's worn blinkers in all of his career starts. Of course, he'll wear blinkers again today. But it was interesting. It looked like maybe Bob was experimenting and thinking about taking the blinkers off. He decided not to do it. Question for you, Craig. I don't know if you remember this, but did Juan happen to exercise this horse? But Baffert really has his own slew of exercise riders, right?
Yeah, he's got
Beto and all those other guys.
Got a bunch of guys. Manny, two Eric Garcias, Juan Ochoa. He's got a bunch of good guys.
But that's an excellent work right now. Like I said, kind of an old-fashioned blowout, 36 and change. You drew the rail. This horse has a lot of early speed. Like I said, taking a drop down in class. He's going to be, no pun intended, but he's going to be tough to beat simply because if he gets the lead, it's going to be kind of a come and catch me scenario.
I think you're right. The one hole is tough, though.
Yes.
Around here is not easy.
And that's the concern, right?
Yeah.
If you had to maybe consider someone that maybe would be your main challenger, would you consider it to be Winds of Freedom from the Red Hot Bob Hess barn?
Absolutely.
Why do you think barns get hot, Craig? In other words, we see it time and time again. Mark Glatt, Jeff Mullins, Bob Hess, they seem to really kind of heat up and they continue that hot streak for months on end.
I think the horses just run out of conditions. They'll win the conditions, and then all of a sudden, naturally, they have to go up higher, be it allowance races, claiming the guy. If he wins for 25, he doesn't want, he wants to raise him up. He doesn't want to give him away. So unless you're one of the mega barns that can just keep replenishing horses, they're going to be limited. Then they're going to hit a lull, and then probably have to resurface in a couple months.
And one thing I think that happens while they're going up in class and continuing that win streak, the barn is what I'm referring to, Craig, is the whole barn just has a lot of confidence, right? From the exercise riders to the foremans. And I think that the horses can feel that. I think they can sense that, even like with Shoemaker, I didn't get to see him ride a whole bunch, but back in the day, like Shoemaker would just give that horse that type of confidence. And it kind of just, you forget that they're living, breathing animals. And I think they can sense, the horses are not stupid. They can sense that confidence, whether it's the jockey or the people around the barn.
I agree, Tom. You know who would say that to me a lot after he won a big race? And he would say it with Rock Hard 10 when he won the San Diego Handicap, and Beholder when she would always
Gary
win.
Stevens, who
Gary,
you had.
Gary, I said, man, he said, I knew we were going to win when we left the paddock. He said, I just had such a good feeling. This horse knew he was going to win.
They kind of fill up and, they're kind of King Kong and they know they're superior to the rest of the animals. And did you have Gary when Beholder put on that show down in the Pacific Classic beating the boys?
No, I didn't. Ronnie Ebanks had him.
Ronnie Ebanks, the love man. There's a name from the past.
Ronnie Ebanks. And then Gary called me to take him back after that summer. And my wife said, I thought you had a kind of a policy you wouldn't take him back.
Just all riders, right?
I said, did you see her win the Pacific Classic? We're taking him back. And then you know what happened, Tom? She didn't run in the Breeders' Cup Classic. She scratched. And my other jockey, Tyler Bays, had a mount in it too that year for Victor Garcia, and that one scratched. And my wife said, oh, that has to be 100-1. I said, 100-1? $1 million to 1 that both jocks get to ride in it. And then let's times it by 10 that they both scratch.
But you make a good point, Craig. It's an up and down game, right? You can't get too high, too low, just like Juan. In other words, when you're riding good, of course, everything is great. But in the blink of an eye, something can happen, or you got bad luck, or you've seen it all. You've been in the business for 50 years.
I've seen it, ups, downs, you name it.
Sideways, all the way around.
Everything.
Race number 5 begins 2 wagers, both the 50-cent late pick 5 as well as the $3 all turf pick 3 with a reduced 15% ticket. And we commence both wagers in race 5, going 6 furlongs on the turf course for allowance optional claiming types. Calbred 3-year-olds on the turf course, 2 scratches. Scratch the 1 and the 2. That means number 9, Here Is Hope, does draw into the field. You don't have a mount in this race, Craig, but I wanted to show a workout for number 6, Kyokus, from the Richard Mandela barn, coming off a long layoff. Let's watch that workout back on April 7th. The reason why I wanted to show this workout, Craig, was primarily because 47-3 is certainly scooting right along early in the morning this particular morning. And being a 3-year-old coming back off a long layoff and adding Lasix as well, you remember her debut down at Del Mar, Craig, where she was brilliant in victory. She came back and it looks like she bled. She finished third in a field of 7. And, she's from the Richard Mandela barn. We know Richard is patient. And Kyle Frey, by the way, is doing a fantastic job. He and his agent, Jack Carava. Kaiokis is one of the many contenders in race 5.
Yeah, the way she ran, and see, it's a little misleading. I mean, she's cowbred, but she's also by Omaha Beach. So
who Richard trained.
Yeah, well, so I would think in that post position, I would think she has a big chance.
She sure.
I don't think she'll be 5-1.
No, and Lava Lucy, of course, who has 1 sprint on the turf course, 2 back on February 23rd, earning a Beyer speed figure of 82. That was a very dominating performance as well. Edwin Maldonado in the saddle means probably from gate to wire is what they hope their trip is going to be. Let's take a look at race number 6, Craig, because you do have them out in this particular race. Race 6 begins the 50-cent late pick 4. We're going 1 mile on the main track for fillies and mares. Allowance optional claiming types, a field of 5. Number 4, Seismic Beauty from the Bob Baffert barn is the 6-5 morning line favorite. That's your mount in the race. Before we get your selections in the race, let's watch Seismic Beauty's last performance. This was back on March 14th in the second race. As you indicated, the rail can be a tough post position sprinting here at Santa Anita, and that's exactly the post she drew. She was 2-5 odds this particular afternoon, and she finished somewhat of a distant third, but she did have a lot of subtle trouble. So let's listen to Frank Miramati describe the action and watch Seismic Beauty breaking from post position number 1.
They all could be. And they're off. Mirinda is flashing her early zip. On the outside comes Yuki in second. Not the greatest of beginnings for Seismic Beauty, who nonetheless able to get third. They're followed by Wish They All Could Be, 3 off the pace in fourth, guided to the outside. And Fayette Fox trails. Past the 5/8 pole, Mirinda easy lead of a length. Yuki in second, Wish They All Could Be inches up on the outside of Seismic Beauty. And Fayette Fox is 3.5 off the lead, heading toward the 3/8 pole, where it's Mirinda and Edwin Maldonado just in front. Yuki applying some pressure. Wish They All Could Be. Seismic Beauty is down on the inside. Fourth, has run, needs room. And outside of her, Fayette Fox. At the 5/16, Mirinda still there. Wish They All Could Be. Seismic Beauty is down at the rail in third. Then Fayette Fox. Yuki drops out, top of the lane. Mirinda behind her. Seismic Beauty still awaiting room, trying to get through a narrow opening. And now fully extended in second. In the meantime, Wish They All Could Be. And Fayette Fox is running a big race on the outside. Wish They All Could Be. Fayette Fox. Wish They All Could Be. Fayette Fox. Fayette Fox. Big long shot goes away to score under Raylu Gutierrez. Wish They All Could Be.
Craig, as we watch the gallop out, we'll notice the fractions up there on the top right-hand side of the screen. 43-2, 108-4, 115-1. That's racehorse time. And as I mentioned before, we watched the replay. Seismic Beauty was kind of bottled up down inside. She didn't really have a clear path to run. Frank Miramati described that as part of his call. When she actually had a lane to run at, mentally she was a little bit fried because she had been in a very difficult position most of the race.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. She'd had a couple trips like that, and I think I've heard Bob say this is really what she wants to do.
Going 2 turns.
The trouble is, as you can see, we got 5 in this race. They're kind of some of these races, the conditions are tough. Fillies and mares long on the dirt. On the turf, it'll fill, but on the dirt, it's tough to get.
But she is going long for the very first time. She's a daughter of Uncle Mo, making you think that she would like 2 turns. And it seems like just the inside information you gave us, Bob has wanted to do this all along, and she's going to be able to utilize that speed a lot more effectively.
I think you're right.
Let's take a look at race number 7, Craig. Race number 7 begins the $3 late pick 3 with a reduced 15% takeout. Once again, we're sprinting 6 furlongs to the turf course for fillies and mares, allowance optional claiming types, non-winners of 2 other than Scratch the 2, Kissed by Fire, leaves us with a field of 7. Number 4, Pushiness from the Michael McCarthy barn is the 3-2 morning line favorite. You ride number 6, Royal Charter, for the Leonard Powell barn. Before we talk about the race, let's talk about trainer Michael McCarthy. He's likely to saddle the post-time favorite for the Kentucky Derby journalism. You obviously probably are admiring him from a distance. What do you think of him as a lightly raced 3-year-old and what he's accomplished up to this point in his career?
Oh, he's a good horse. Juan worked him down at Del Mar a couple times. My guy said, I'm going to have something for Bob. And that's just what it is.
Sure.
It's, but Juan said, man, he's got some good horses. This one and Bullard, Juan worked them both and said he's got some nice horses. And Michael, I've known him, played poker with him. He's a good guy, does a great job.
He might be a shrewd poker player. That's just my guess. Looking at him from the outside looking in, he doesn't show a lot of facial expressions.
He's good. He's pretty sharp. In fact, this filly, we broke her maiden, pushing us by 5 or 6 lengths. Lost her to Rispoli over a whipping violation, and never were able to get back on her because Rispoli filled in and won a Calbred stake on her.
You mentioned earlier, Craig, that you won 2 Kentucky Derbies with Eddie D. Did you win with any of your other jockeys at Kentucky Derby?
No. The irony of that was Hardtack, who's won 5 of them, had talked to Eddie and I when we were both in our early 30s, and Hardtack told Eddie, "Oh, you'll break my record. You'll get 4 or 5." Eddie never got any more. Eddie and I stayed together from 83. He could have almost got one more with Gate Dancer. He had a rough trip, and they really didn't let him. He really wasn't in the gate when they sprung it.
He finished second also for Charlie Whittingham to Go for Gin back in '94. My mind is racing. Corey Black rode the horse, and then Charlie switched over to Eddie D that particular afternoon. But second doesn't count.
No, and then we went back there. I went back. Corey had Colonel John, who was low odds.
Sure. Didn't
fire. And then Eddie had one firing line for Simon Callahan.
Finished a great second.
Yeah, we turned for home. Dortmund started dropping back, Bob's other horse. And I turned to my wife at the 8th pole. It was Gary on firing line and Victor on American Pharaoh. And I turned and I said, "This is what we came here for, honey." And just then, American Pharaoh we couldn't get by him.
No disgrace losing to the Triple Crown winner, of course, but firing line did fire that particular afternoon. Race number 8 begins the $5 late daily double, also with a reduced 15% take on it. We kick off that wager in race 8, going 1 mile on the main track. It's a starter optional claiming race. Scratch the also eligible number 11, Atomic Drop, will not compete. We've got a good field of 10. Morning line favorite number 3, Zimba Warrior, on a win streak, 2-race win streak for Edwin Maldonado, 3-1 on the morning line. You don't ride this race, Craig, but I know you pay attention to these relatively Northern California shippers. Give us your thoughts on race 8.
Well, I kind of like a price horse in here. I kind of like the horse Tyler Bays. My son's jockey rides.
Nauvoo.
Dan Escarati. For a low-profile trainer, he does a really good job. And this horse has been running decently, and I thought maybe if he's 10 to 1 or above, I wouldn't be surprised if he runs well.
You stole my live long shot for the day, Craig, without looking at my notes. Nauvoo, I swear, is my live long shot for the reasons you mentioned, particularly that most recent work, a bullet workout, best out of 53, 46-1 back on April 11th. Dan Escardi, I think, is going to put Nauvoo on the lead, which is what he wants to do. And as you mentioned, at 10-1, it might be a come and catch me scenario, particularly with not a lot of speed signed up in race number 8. We close out Friday's card in race number 9, offering $1 super high 5 wagering. We're sprinting 6 furlongs on the turf course. It's a maiden special weight race for Calbreds. Number of scratches here: scratch 8, 10, 11, and 12. 8, 10, 11, 12 will not compete. That means number 9, Curlin Command, does draw in and will compete. Also, take note that the first-time starter, number 2, Flyover, who's Brad Flea's play of the day, the first-time starter, is ridden by Juan Hernandez. Before we get your thoughts on the race, Craig, let's watch a gate drill for Flyover. This would have been the most recent work on April 10th. Let's watch, courtesy of our friends at firsttv.com. You can see Flyover kind of stumbles a little bit coming out of the gate, but nevertheless really kind of gathers himself and really kind of picks up steam here. Final time will be 1:01 and change, which is not horrible for a first-time starter. He hasn't been able to get to the races until midway through his 4-year-old career, Craig. What has the John Sadler barn told you, if anything, about Flyover?
John's assistant, Juan Leyva, called me about 2 weeks ago and asked me if I could ride. So we got a good one for you. And usually when Juan or John ask me and mention that it's a good one, I usually ride them, and they're usually right. These are also the same owners that have Kings River Knight, who won 6 or 7 stakes on. So they breed a good horse. They've been in California for years.
It's interesting. Flyover's Dam, first-class flyer. I looked up in Diarra Formulator, her racing history. She was actually 2 for 2 on the turf course. She was trained by Bruce Headley back then, so certainly the turf pedigree is there. You do draw down inside, which might be disadvantageous, but nevertheless, as you mentioned, the connections think that Flyover is a good one, and that's good enough for both you and me. Also take note, in race 9, number 4, High King is a first-time gelding. Before we go, and as we continue to watch the end of this workout, one more wager for all of you watching to consider, and that would be the $1 coast-to-coast pick 5. As you can see up on the screen right now, it's a $1 minimum wager with a low 15% takeout. There's 3 races from Santa Anita. It starts early today. The first leg starts with Santa Anita race 2, 1:32 p.m. Pacific time. You've already heard Craig's thoughts on today's card. Put your own thoughts together with Craig's and see if you can hit the $1 coast-to-coast pick 5. Craig, always love having you on the seminar. Thank you so much for your time and input. You're a busy man. You didn't need to do that. Congratulations on securing the jockey title for the winter meet. Hope you and Juan can do it for the spring meet as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
pleasure,
Frank. Thanks so much, Craig. Thanks to all of you for watching as well. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Next voice you hear will be Frank Miramati introducing the national anthem and updating any late scratches. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our national anthem. Good afternoon and welcome to Santa Anita Park as we begin the Hollywood meet. Track conditions brought to you by John Deere. We are fast and firm with the rail on the turf at 30 feet. Here are the changes. In the first, number 1, Cernano, 2 pounds over. No scratches or jockey changes in race 2. In the third, scratch 5, My Favorite Daughter. Fourth race starts the pick 6 with no changes. In the fifth, scratch 1, Petite Treat, scratch 2, Musical Number. All turf pick 3 starts with the fifth. In the sixth, late pick 4 begins. No changes. Race 7, take out the 2, Kissed by Fire. In the 8th, scratch 11, Atomic Drop. And in the 9th, scratch 8, Warren's Hot Rod. Scratch 10, Bonneville Jim. Scratch 11, Roxy's Bad Boy. Scratch 12, Big Notion. Super High 5 offered on the finale. The Coast to Coast Pick 5 is back Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Today it starts with Santa Anita's second race. Enjoy your day at the Great Race Place. 27 minutes to the opener.